Hey, estate planners, Heath Ross here. Hope all you guys are having a great week. In Denver, it is either 60 degrees or it is snowing. Sometimes it's 60 degrees and snowing. I'm just kidding. That doesn't happen, but sometimes it feels like it's like 40 degrees and the snowflakes come in so thick. It's like seven snowflakes in one, and they hit your coat, and you're just like, oh, now I'm covered in snow. So you get covered in snow pretty quickly here. But yeah, it feels like every other day we're getting a ton of snow here, and then the next day it all melts, and then 3 days later it snows again. So it's just like on again, off again. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so I apologize. We didn't go live this week. We've been having some technical difficulties with the internet in the office. That's why I've just been pre-recording these and then uploading them after, which is okay too. Hope to have the issue resolved by next week so we can start doing some more lives. I'd love to field some more of your questions and help everybody win. What have I been up to this week? I've been focusing on a book that I'm writing. This has been a great project. I'm super introverted, and when it comes to the task of writing a book, it's just like it feels like it's a long, drawn out process, something that probably takes a lot longer than it should. But yeah, so it feels like I'm rewriting a lot of the stories that I've already written before, but making it so that it fits contextually different in a different way into the total story that I'm telling in the book. And right now, I'm working on rewriting the story about my first blog. And why I'm even why it's even important to share the story of the first blog. If you've never heard me talk about my book before, it's called Websites for People, and the intention behind the book is to help people have a better relationship with technology, so that it's something that nurtures their lives and helps them to be more present and nurtures their relationships with other people. With the evolution of technology, especially in the last 10 years, it feels like there's a lot more anxiety and there's a lot more there's a lot of noise out there, and it's hard to know what's the best use of my time, what's gonna enrich my life as opposed to taking over my life, or maybe making me live my life differently. I believe in the philosophy that we should be more present, and technology is a means to help us live more present and to strengthen our relationships and meet people in person, and have better communication practices with the people that are around us and that we love. It's wonderful that we can use it as a tool to connect with people, especially people that all of us have come together into this group, and we may have never met in person before, if it weren't for being able to connect in a group like this. So now that we're in this group, we have the opportunity when we are at similar conferences, we can now go and we can meet up, and then we can make that connection in person, and that's what the group is doing for us. So that's awesome. So there's lots of great ways to use it, but I digress. I want to share today the story of the very first blog that I wrote. Initially, I was thinking I'll tell the story of the first viral blog post, which maybe I'll get to that. And then I was like, all right, I should tell the story of my first blog. But you know what? The story of my first blog wasn't really that cool. I'll just sum it up for you. I meditated for the very first time, and then about a half hour after meditating, I read that somebody blogged for 30 days straight and was just blogging about their journey, what was going on in their day. And that was kind of the story of my first blog. But the first time that, after researching all of these practices around search engine optimization, better known as SEO, and how to help people and businesses get found on the internet, I decided that I was going to use the skills that I had learned through blogging to apply that to churches. And this is kind of the story of my first blog. Eventually, it evolved into more of a kind of a mission blog where I would just share, travels that I had done on mission trips, photos, kind of almost like a time capsule. But when I did my very first blog, it was, just talking about my day, what I did that day. And when that was going on, I happened to have a friend that was carpooling with me to work every day at 5:30 in the morning. And that friend happened to be in a band that performed at a church, that performed in a movie theater. The church, it was a startup church, and he was in the band that was in the movie theater. And he said, "Hey man, you live nearby, like you should just come. I'm playing guitar on Sunday. I play most Sundays. You should come and check it out." And I'm like, all right, movie theater. Maybe I can, watch a movie afterwards. I know he's going to be there, so at least I'll have one friend. And actually, there was another guy in the carpool that had just started going to that church as well, so I might have two friends at the church. And mind you, growing up in a town of 1,800 people in Iowa, the one church that we went to, the pastor was like 70 years old. And to me, growing up, it was just another place that I would take a nap on the really hard wooden pews. They didn't have cushions back then. There's cushions in the pews now. They didn't have cushions back then. But yeah, it was really difficult for me to even relate to somebody standing up front talking when they were 70, and I was just a teenager or younger. So I didn't really, pay attention much in church, but this church happened to have a pastor. I was probably 23, 24 at the time, maybe 22. And the pastor was like, he's about my age now. He's in his younger to middle 30s, but he was really into basketball and sports in general. And he would weave in stories and analogies about sports a lot with his teachings. He'd be talking about something that in the Bible, but he would say, yeah, and then, AR just took it to the hole. And it would just like snap me back into focus. So I really, really enjoyed it. So I kept coming back to this church. And then, I realized, my blogging, I ended up starting relating things back to, things that I was listening to and learning through the teachings at this church. And that was really inspiring. And I started getting a lot of really good feedback from people that were reading the blog about, what my experience was like at this church. And I started getting some people that even said, I think I might actually go check out, another church because, my experience of church has always been, this or that. But just reading your blog has inspired me to, maybe go check it out again because, I've been kind of bored on Sundays. So, what the hey? And I'm like, well, crap, that's really encouraging. That's really awesome, because that's actually the things that they're teaching you at this church is to, have a stronger community. And bring people in so that you can do more things together and form that strong community. So I'm like, okay, now learning what I've been learning about SEO and intention-based blogging and purposeful blogging, how can I use this to help bring more people to this church? So I did some searching on the internet for the church, and I couldn't find anything about this church. I mean, granted, it was new, it was probably, 3-4 months old at the time that I started going to it, but they had not had anything figured out in terms of getting their website to show up, getting their church Google My Business listing to show up when people searched for it. They hadn't done any of that. And there was like a Facebook page is the only thing that showed up when you searched for it, which isn't the worst thing. That's, could be nothing. But anyway, so I said, okay, what if I just wrote a blog on my website that already has gained some traction and is showing up in search results and use the right keywords and headlines and tell a story that will put the reader in my seat. My intention was to help whoever is reading this blog to feel like they're at the service with me, with the end result being maybe they'd feel comfortable enough to actually come on a Sunday. All right. So that's what I did. I took pictures from like my seat in the movie theater, and kind of like showed like, hey, this is how spaced apart people are. Here's the band, here's the big screen in the background. You know, and then I told a story about, all right, here's what I did as I was getting there today. Here's what's going on. I was very, down to earth. It was like having a conversation with somebody that's right in the room with me. So, it was fun writing. And then I would go into, here's what the pastor taught about today. And, maybe I would just say, he was in this book talking about this chapter. Maybe I'd like quote maybe a verse from the chapter. And then I just said how I interpreted it, how I understood what it is that he said. Somebody that has never even gone through the Bible a full time completely yet. Here's kind of just how I interpreted it. And, just giving as much value as I can through the story that I'm telling about my visit to this church this one day. And as I'm doing that, of course, I'm putting all of the keywords in there that I need to. I was living in Rochester, Minnesota at the time. So, I would use headlines and subheadings that said, church in movie theater, Rochester, Minnesota, new church, Rochester, Minnesota. And I would squeeze into my sentences, there's a really good following of young adults in this church, this new church in Rochester, Minnesota. So it would show up when people were searching for things like that better. So I wrote the blog and I finished it and I published it. And sure enough, a week later, when I searched for the church in Google, my blog was the first thing that showed up. Now imagine that. Like, how cool is that? Now when people were searching for this church, essentially my blog was essentially now this church's website. I had the service times, when you can show up, what type of music you can expect, whether or not they have communion. And now I was, I was actually living out, the message that they were, giving us at the church, is to, have more community and bring people to that church. So I took what I learned with this lesson, and I decided, what if I went to other churches that also have no online presence, and I wrote blogs about my experience there. So that's what I did. I started going to other churches throughout the city of Rochester, and I was blogging about what it is that I learned that Sunday. And that's actually what I ended up calling the blog, What I Learned Last Sunday. So all I would do is I would go to the church, and I would take, journal, take notes about, here's how it was finding the place. Here's how it was, finding my seat, where I sat. If you're a young adult, you might want to sit in the upper right, 10 rows, because I found out that's where a lot of them are sitting. Sharing little things like that would make somebody who is searching for a church feel comfortable if they came across my blog and they read it. And of course, I always put that service time and all of that good stuff in there too. So I visited 8 churches in Rochester, and I blogged about all of them. And then all of a sudden, my blogs were showing up whenever somebody searched for churches in Rochester. How freaking cool is that? I couldn't believe it. And it was such a neat, like a experience, adventure, to go on. And since then, now, of course, I just love visiting all different types of churches. Really nerdy about that. I'll go to all different denominations. I love beautiful buildings. I'm all about that. But yeah, the whole kind of, journey of seeing how, I can then take what I'm learning, through blogging and telling a story and creating action through a blog that was very intention based. Of course, I got a ton out of it too by being able to write about it and share my story. But the end result was to be able to meet more people and have more community, and also help other people have community, and find that community from how they were searching online. And maybe even save them some time and maybe some headache, if because finding a new church isn't easy either. But if you can get a young adult's actual story or experience and their take on what it's like there from, a single visit, that might actually help people to determine, which one am I going to have the best opportunity at going to, help people have more courage, or I guess be braver to actually go out there and do it. So that experience taught me a lot. And I took that experience and then I started applying it to businesses and how this can be useful for a business. So where am I? What am I at? I'm about 15 minutes in. All right, so I'm going to tell the story of my first viral blog post and how it brought me business, even though that wasn't my intention at the time. Drinking water out of a coffee cup. It's so delicious. Okay, so I don't know, maybe I had. I think, yeah. So I went to social media marketing world 2013 while I was still working my job as a programmer analyst. And I learned a ton. I went there and I just opened a Twitter, or actually I opened a Twitter account like right when Twitter came out, but I think I had like 100 followers. And then leading up to the conference, I started tweeting and connecting with some people that I knew would be at the conference from, like LinkedIn groups and the forums. And I think I probably had like 150 by the time that, it was the day to go to the conference. And I went there and it was, basically a week-long conference. And I just tweeted up a storm. It was so easy because instead of, journaling while I was listening to a message at a service, I was essentially just tweeting, major points from the speakers. And they almost always had competitions, whoever gets the most retweets, likes, or, is going to win, a free book or something. So, I always went all in on that because I was, enjoying it so much and really good note taker, being super introverted. Of course, I'm a good note taker, but I was really good at forming the tweets in a way that was really resonated with people. So I ended up leaving that conference with, I want to say like 1,500 followers, and all marketers of all walks, and it was super fun. And I did get to meet a lot of A-listers too. Getting so popular from all of the tweets, obviously they want to meet the person who's saying and doing all of this stuff too. So one of the really neat people that I got to meet was Marcus Sheridan. Back then he was known as the Sales Lion. And this was his very first major marketing conference that he was speaking at. It was so cool. It was so neat to meet him too. And I actually ended up bumping into him probably like 4 or 5 times that weekend. Like even one time he was just like going for a run, and he had all of his running gear on. This is in San Diego. And he had like these glasses, like you probably wouldn't know it was him just from, what he was dressed like. And he was like stopping at a stoplight. So he was just kind of like jogging in place. And he goes, "Heath, what's up, man?" I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's awesome. Oh my God, this is Marcus. Like that was awesome. So that was really neat. But he has a really unique story. If you've never heard of him, he is an amazing speaker on content marketing and the value of it. And he always shares his story of how he was, the co-owner of a pool company. I want to say like West Virginia. It was definitely East Coast. And they were struggling. They were really struggling. I think this was like I want to say 2008. When the housing market collapsed, and they were just really struggling to get business, and they were on the verge of actually going out of business. So he's like, all right, I don't know what can we do? What can we possibly do to help this? So what he started doing, because he was getting all these phone calls every single day from people that would call and ask all of these different questions about pool building. And what type of pool, fiberglass versus concrete, probably the most common question that he received. And he was constantly answering it. And it was the same over and over and over again. And he's like, man, I keep having all of these conversations and they're like 20, 30 minutes long every time. And I'm answering the same questions over and over and over again. Wouldn't it be just easier if, when people called, they knew the answer or I could refer them a place that they could, read more about it. And when they talk to me on the phone, I'm just closing, I'm just doing sales. Like that, wouldn't that be optimal? Like I would love to just be able to do that. So he took that to heart and he started to write articles on his company's website, answering the questions that he received most often when he was talking on the phone. And from that, I mean, at the time, he was not a good writer. I read a lot of the original blogs that he wrote. I even read the very first kind of PDF booklet that he wrote about this experience, and sentence structure wasn't even there. But the thing is, he was doing his absolute best to type out the question that people were asking, and then write until in his heart he felt that he'd answered that question in the title completely. Because his intention is for this person to know everything about this question and that answer before they call him and ask him about it. Because if they know all the answers to all of the questions, then what are they going to do when they call? They're going to set up an appointment to get this pool, estimated, and he's going to sell a pool to them. So he put a lot of time and effort into every blog that he wrote, and a lot of thought about what it is that he was going to be writing about. And from that, his pool company started getting so many leads from people searching online, because he was the only guy that was answering everybody's questions. He was getting leads from out of state, and in the matter of just a year of doing that, he took his company on the verge of going bankrupt to being the largest pool company in the entire state. And then, a year later, it was like the largest in like the 3-state area, So now, now he's the co-owner of like this huge pool company. And it all started because he was answering his customers' questions, and he was taking their questions seriously, with intention and purpose. So kind of a miraculous story. If you've already heard that story, I apologize, but I wanted to share kind of my story and how I started doing it, and then I wanted to share Marcus's story, and then taking all of that into account. Then I came home and I'm like, okay, there's this whole blogging journey kind of started with meditation for me. That's kind of how I came upon it, and I had another childhood best friend that was really into meditation also, and just started getting into it. This was also the time where Facebook pages had an enormous reach. Big Facebook pages had like 3 to 5 million followers, and those were like the biggest pages out there on the internet at the time. And there was a page, there are pages out there that we enjoyed following, and we thought, what if we wrote a blog with the intention of completely answering this particular topic, and then shared it with these large Facebook pages to get the message out about meditation and its and how beneficial it is. So that's what we did. The title of the post was Synchronized Global Meditation for Peace. And what we did with this blog, what our intention from the right off the bat was to be able to explain in very easy to understand language the benefits and what happens biologically to a single cell in your body when you meditate, and take that back to what happens to, or grow that idea to what happens into a system, to the overall being, what happens when groups meditate. And then there was a specific case study that we're able to reference and link to that was actually done in Iowa, where I'm originally from, that showed the benefits on groups meditating together for a purposeful cause together at the same time, and how that would change things. And then we took it to the extreme, and we looked at how the actual frequency of the earth is changed when major events happen, and how we could apply people meditating in tiny groups to a global experience, and what could happen globally if people around the world were meditating on a particular cause at a particular time, and how that might actually change the frequency of the earth. And this is all backed by science. And the blog is still out there. Actually, it's on my website company's website, Personable Media. If you go in there and type in the search bar meditation, it'll be one of the first things that pop up. So we took that blog, and I made a nice little graphic photo for it, because that's what we were doing. We were letting people know when people were meditating all over the earth, and invited them to meditate at that same time, even if it wasn't for a particular cause. If everybody on the planet was doing it at the same time, maybe we can achieve world peace, right? It was kind of a fluff article in that sense, but you understood the intention. The intention was to get people out, not get people out, but get people understanding the benefits of not just meditation for themselves, but as their communities and their world as a whole. So anyways, here's where the juicy part is. When we wrote that, we were just trying to take what we learned and our knowledge and have fun doing it. And we thought it would be really neat if we could see something get published and go viral, which it did. All of these Facebook pages that had multi-million followers republished it or reshared it on their websites, and the message got out. It was so neat. I would just be scrolling through Facebook, and then I would see my blog out there, and this thing would have 20,000 likes and 6,000 comments on it, and it was posted 6 hours ago. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like jaw dropping, like this is crazy. Like, it was so neat. It was so neat to see that. And so that all went out there, and I wasn't I don't remember where we originally published it. But anyways, there was probably 100 websites that took the article and then just, republished it. They might have added photos or changed a sentence or two in it, but they still gave us credit, and they linked back to the original article. But from that, fast forward, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months, the people there was a nonprofit out there that had a Facebook page, and I think at the time they had like 1.1 million followers, and it was a nonprofit that brings people together for synchronized meditations, causal meditations around something, one particular topic one particular topic. And this organization, based out of New York, they happened to have needed a website. And they came across this article that we'd written that really aligns with their values. And they found, the source of the original article, and they were like, oh, wow, this is a website company. These are people who, build and design websites. That's what we need. Our values really align here. And this nonprofit ended up reaching out to us, and we closed a sale as a result of the blog post that we had written. So that's bringing it all the way back. We put something out there. Our intention wasn't to, sell websites to nonprofits that focus on helping people meditate. That was never the intention. The intention was just to give value. And of course, we were having fun. We wanted to see something go viral, but we were putting out great content. We were teaching people. We were educating people. We weren't educating people about websites. We were just educating people with our talents of being able to write effectively and market effectively. And what ended up manifesting was a company that has very similar values came back to us and said, hey, we want to work with you. We want to do business. And of course, we built that website. It was so much fun. It was a great project. If you want to look it up, the name of this nonprofit is called The Master Shift. They're still on Facebook, but of course, Facebook's reach has greatly changed from, what was this, probably 2012 or 2013. And every time you post, they're getting like not even a 20th of their reach of, the reach of every single post that they had, back then before Facebook started, monitoring how much reach, organic reach people were receiving. Anyways, I wanted to share this story because it's real. Everything in it is real. And this is my story. So of course I'm going to share it, the way it happened for me. kind of, my becoming story, how I understood the power of, having a great website, but also writing things with intention. And the story of the first time that, something that I wrote actually ended up bringing me business, kind of, in a sense. It was a time period. It took a long time. Of course, when I started writing my first blog, people on Facebook, business owners that were friends, were seeing it. But this was kind of like my first inbound marketing experience. What is inbound marketing? Inbound marketing is any time that you're writing something with intention of somebody, a business owner or a person that could utilize your services, goes and ends up finding it online through searching for it. Yeah, that's what it is. A better example of, I guess, trying to define that term would be another one of my first clients. Right when I started this company, they did clothing for CrossFitters. And so we built their website, and they were selling products on the website, and they wanted to know how to get more people to help people find the website better. And of course, advertising is going to be great. Google ads, search ads, Facebook ads. But at the time, the person didn't have the budget to do that, and that's totally fine. And so I said, not only is blogging going to help people find you through inbound marketing, but it's also going to keep people on the website longer and get to know your brand better when they come as a result of your direct marketing, right? So she said, okay, so what should I blog about? And I said, okay, well, what are you into? What are CrossFitters into? And what's something that you could write about that, you'd be passionate about? And she said, well, what I really enjoy doing, I'm really into paleo. And all of my CrossFit friends, or a lot of them, are really into paleo, this paleo diet. And she said she makes the best desserts. So I said, that's perfect. So write about paleo dessert recipes. Essentially turn this blog into a giant, cookbook for paleo recipes. And people will find it when they're searching for this stuff. And they're going to say, oh my gosh, this is also a CrossFit products clothing company. So, they might end up purchasing things because they, were on the website looking for one thing in particular. So she was marketing for one thing, She was putting the message out, here's some paleo dessert recipes, and she was getting sales on another thing that was closely related and, was her target market. So kind of a better example of what inbound marketing is. Yeah, a lot of stuff that I covered in today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. This was my story of how I got into inbound marketing, how I started seeing the value of blogging and the benefits that it can bring. Of course, now I've been doing that for estate planning attorneys. Before estate planning attorneys, I was doing it for a variety of different industries, just to help people get the structure of blogs, titling, so important, but also write content that people actually want to read, and that the people that are authoring these blogs actually want to write about and enjoy writing about, and actually get to see the results. Yeah. And, as an estate planning attorney, there is so much opportunity for you guys out there to be able to do this. It's a matter of just, being brave enough to take that step and wanting to put yourself out there. And I know that that's really not easy to do, especially as, an attorney. How do you do this in a way that, you're doing it the right way? And always wanting to be things to be perfect before you put them out there, sort of thing. Well, that's where I can actually help you guys. I help you guys with the structure, the mindset, components. I go through and I edit everything, and then I help you publish it and I help you market it. So going through and getting your first 11 blogs is the goal when we get started. And once an attorney gets to those first 11 blogs, you really start to get in your groove, and that's where I start seeing, blogs going from, 600 to, 900 words, and all of a sudden, I figured something out, and then all of a sudden they send me a blog that's like 14 to 1600 words, and we're off to the races at that point. Yeah, so it's really, really neat to see that. So if you guys, if you're interested in learning how to blog and you want to have this experience of being able to do inbound marketing where you're answering your customers' questions, and when they pick up the phone and call you, they are so educated that they're ready to sit down and have a meeting about getting their living trust set up, then I invite you to schedule a call with me. We can do a 20-minute just blogging strategy session, talk about what your goals with it are, where you're at, your experience with writing, and I can help you guys get on your way to building something through your website that is going to serve you passively and serve your customers passively for the lifetime of your businesses. So that's all I have for today. If you guys have questions for me, of course, let me know. I'll drop a link to where you can schedule a call with me, and have a great weekend.